Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Dill. LSU heading on the road to play Texas A&M College Station. This one feels like a college football playoff-esque game, and I think whoever wins this football game puts them in a really good spot to make the college football playoffs. We did a game preview on this football game. We took a look from a Texas A&M standpoint. Dill, now we're going to circle back and take a look from the LSU standpoint. What does LSU need to do to win this football game against Texas A&M? And I think this is the fascinating matchup where there's a lot to like about both of these teams, but there are also question marks about both of these teams heading into this. Can LSU attack some of the question marks for Texas A&M? That's what we're going to get into. Fired up to get into it. Before we do, and as always, just want to say, one, Texas A&M fans, LSU fans, let it fly in the comments section. These deep dives have been a blast for the boys. The amount of support y'all continue to show means the world. Appreciate you guys. Dill, without further ado, I think we got to start with this LSU defense. And you described it as opportunistic, and I think that is a perfect word to describe LSU, where you look at the numbers and say they're only allowing 20.5 points per game. That's 29th best in the country. This is a top 30 scoring defense in the country under Blake Baker. But they do give up some yards. I mean, they're giving up 5.5 yards per play. That's only 73rd. Really good on third downs. Really good in the red zone. Really good at creating negative plays. Dill, you have a feeling LSU is going to need all three of those things to win this football game on the road against Texas A&M.
And that's just kind of where LSU's at, because you look, maybe person to person or player to player, they're not an elite defense, but they have some stars, and their stars have turned it up. I mean, the way Braden Swinson started playing like legit first-round talent, I mean, he's winning his one-on-ones when he gets his shot to rush the passer. He's doing it at a really high level. Obviously, Whit Weeks has emerged into arguably the best linebacker in all of college football. I mean, what he's doing in terms of covering so much ground in the middle, making a ton of tackles, I think you've seen, obviously, the big plays go down for LSU, and that's given them a chance when they get chances to go make negative ones, and that's Burns, that's Swinson, that's Shand, who I think is a very underrated player. They're starting to make those, and you see the TFL and sack numbers way up and the turnover numbers up, and those are the things that I think have projected LSU or propelled LSU into playing some like legitimately good defense.
Yo, what I did not have in my bingo card, like what do we spend all of the offseason talking about with LSU? The defensive line. It's going to be a problem. Not very confident in this unit. They're top 10 in the country, sacking the quarterback, 10.6% of dropbacks. Like all of a sudden this, and they're also really good against the run. Like this LSU front seven has been really good.
Credit to the linebackers, because frankly, I think that has a little more to do with what they're doing against run. Like I like what they're doing, but I still look, that's not a great interior defensive line for LSU. But man, those linebackers led by Whit Weeks.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of what it is, like covering up for maybe some deficiencies within this LSU defense. And Whit Weeks is getting a lot of attention, like as he should. This kid he's becoming right now like what Danny Stutzman was for me last year. Like Whit Weeks is it for me this year. Like I'll just turn on some Whit Weeks highlights and the energy this kid plays with. He's one of the best players to watch in college football. Braden Swinson. And shout out some LSU fans, because we were talking about some breakout candidates during the offseason. We mentioned Braden Swinson. Look, that LSU defense last year flat out sucked. There ain't no arguing that. Braden Swinson was quietly having a really good year. He's taken it up a notch in the 2024 year.
Because I didn't see this from him in terms of like that explosive, like high impact guy. Like you saw him be somewhat disruptive, but I felt it was like a little bit more collapsing pockets and being able to be physical. But you see the twitchiness, the explosion, like his ability to really get after the passer and get sacks, like those type of real impact plays, it's way up, and that's been huge for LSU right now.
So the second key I'm looking at is changing the picture and challenging Conor Weigman. Number one, change the picture. I don't know if there's a better defensive coordinator in the country at disguising what you want to do than Blake Baker, and he'll give you some oddball looks on the defensive side of the football. But for an opposing quarterback, specifically an opposing quarterback like Conor Weigman, who, look, we all know why he was a five-star coming out of high school. Nobody's doubting what he can do with his arm talent. He can make all the throws on the football field. That being said, and Texas A&M fans would be the first to admit, Conor Weigman gets fooled, and he gets fooled more often than I think Texas A&M fans are comfortable with. Played a really good game against Missouri. You go to the Mississippi State film, some good throws, but also some throws where it's like he got tricked. Blake Baker can trick quarterbacks, specifically quarterbacks like Conor Weigman. So changing the picture, number one, but number two, go challenge Conor Weigman and these Texas A&M wide receivers. Although it's looked better the last couple weeks going back to that Missouri game, the biggest question we had about Texas A&M was, can they attack vertically down the field? Do they have the difference makers on the outside? Do they have a quarterback that can make it happen? Conor Weigman's only 3 of 11, 20-plus yards down the field all season. Like, they're not asking him to push it down the field a ton. Can Conor
Noah
Weigman –
Thomas is the only guy who's really shown a great ability to really be a one-on-one difference maker, I think, on the edge. Like, again, you've seen some decent things from Barber and Allen and some of the other A&M wide receivers. Like Jade Walker, I think you would want more from if you're an A&M fan. And I look like the fact that Zy Alexander is really starting to be able to challenge number one wide receiver and be that guy on the boundary. LSU, I think, has kind of changed things since that USC game where you're looking at that secondary, like, good God, who are they going to be able to stop? Like, Zy Alexander coming back, I think, has been huge.
I think it's to me, yes, getting Zy Alexander's been huge for LSU. I think Blake Baker getting more comfortable with his personnel on defense is also really big. Where you go back to the USC game and say it was kind of like Blake Baker was treating that LSU defense like he had that Missouri defense in 2023, where he had 2 NFL caliber boundary cornerbacks, were sending the safeties a lot on big plays, leaving his cornerbacks on islands, and they got burned. Blake Baker is going to continue to be aggressive, but I feel like he's got – I don't know if I'd use the words calculated aggression, but it's a little bit more like, hey, I'm comfortable in terms of the capabilities of my players, and now I'm a better play caller because I understand what I have on the defensive side of the football. You're seeing Blake Baker get more comfortable calling this LSU defense with the personnel he had. And again, you've seen as a result, this LSU defense massively improved from what it was in
You got to
2024.
think part of it is their ability to win one-on-one battles and pass rush. Like, I think, again, like how much pressure he was trying to send on that USC team, like, did it almost feel like he didn't really trust that defensive line to just get after them themselves in that line. So you saw Burns coming a lot. You saw the safeties coming a fair amount. They made some plays, just like they're continuing to make plays. I mean, Major Burns has made some huge plays for this LSU team. So, again, you want to see them be able to send him a couple times a game and see if you can get one of those high-impact plays like you did in that Ole Miss game. But I think, again, it's like you don't need to send him every play because you're looking – this pass rush, it's way improved.
That's probably a good point. Like, hey, I got a pass rush where I don't need to send 5 or 6 to impact the quarterback. All right, sweet. Now I can be a little bit more calculated and creative with how I want to use my safeties in the back end. Last talking point that it's not as big of a problem as we all thought it'd be, stopping the run. Here's the caveat, and I think a lot of LSU fans probably recognize this. You haven't really seen a team stick to the run game against this LSU defense. And when you did against South Carolina, I believe they ran the football for 240 yards against LSU a couple weeks ago. Look, Texas A&M's gonna. Like, this is a Mike Elko coach team. They run the football 62% of the time. That's 12th most in the country. This is a run-first Texas A&M offense. They're going to stick to the run the entire football game, assuming it's a competitive football game like we expect it to. Can LSU hold up? You look at LSU and say they've been good at stopping the run. Now, my question is, can they be good for 4 quarters? Because you look at the numbers and say, LSU's opponents have only run the football 45% of offensive snaps when they've played LSU. That's one of the least in the country. It's going to be a change of pace against Texas A&M. Can LSU hold their own against a run game that's really robust? They're not just kind of a bland run game. Like, they do some pin and pull. They're really, really getting that outside zone down. So the linebackers are going to have to be really good. Good thing for LSU. They got one of the best in the country now in weeks.
Where, again, I think my question will always kind of be about LSU is, like, if they play a team that's going to run the ball 40-plus times, like, what does their interior defensive line do in terms of holding up? Because, like, they have some guys who are playing good at the top end. Like, Gio Paez is playing really, really good football. I think Shan kicking down and being able to give them good reps, really, really important. But, like, again, when you start to get to Ahmad Bro and McKinley Jackson and Scruggs, who I think is also playing really well. I feel like he doesn't play a ton, but he's given them some good minutes. Like that to me is what I'll be looking at. Like how good exactly is a guy like Ahmad Bro and how ready is he to just go play maybe 20 snaps? Like something he might need to do against this Texas A&M team because again, they're a little bit more methodical than anything else he has seen.
The depth. Yeah, I'm with you. Like, and you said McKinley Jackson. I'm guessing you meant Dominic McKinley. LSU would love to have McKinley Jackson on the middle of the defensive line right there. I'm kind of with you though. Like the depth. Can they hold up against 40 plus rushing attacks in this football game? I don't know if I have the answer. I have a feeling we're going to get that answer Saturday night in College Station. Now, a quick note on the offense, and this is I'm not sure how important this is. This is if you want to get your popcorn out for one matchup in this game, it's just Texas A&M pass rush versus LSU offensive line. Like LSU's in pass protection, we all know how good they are. We all know how good Texas A&M is in the pass rush. Can LSU run the football efficiently? And what I mean by that is, can we just slow this Texas A&M pass rush down just a little bit? Where I'm not concerned that LSU's offensive line gets their doors blown off. Like they ain't getting their doors blown off against any pass rush unit in the country. Emory Jones has struggled a little bit at right tackle. I'm not saying he's been bad. There's 99% of the teams in the country would take Emory Jones as the starting right tackle in a heartbeat. Has struggled at times. But the bigger thing is LSU only runs the football 40% of the time. That's 124th in the country. Like they do not want to run the football for whatever reason because they're pretty good at it, especially with the emergence of true freshman Caden Durham. I'm not saying LSU needs to turn into Texas A&M and run the football 60% of the time, but can you just keep this Texas A&M pass rush honest and prevent them from pinning the ears back and just getting after Nuss? That's what I mean by can LSU run the football efficiently on first and second down.
I don't know why they wouldn't want to because I think you said it. Like when they got going against Arkansas, I think that's a very, very good front seven. Like they were just kind of smashing them. They were manhandling them up front. They were moving them off line of scrimmage. And that's still where I question A&M in terms of like, do they have the physicality similar to that I have to LSU? Like, are they deep? Are they big enough? Are they physical enough? Because they're kind of interior defensive line depth. I don't love it, frankly. And again, they're kind of smaller guys and they like to be more active. But when you're an LSU team and you play a little bit more like that well-oiled machine and you're not giving a ton of penetration in run-through, you can catch this Texas A&M defense in some bad spots and rip big runs off. Like we've seen it with teams like Notre Dame and even Mississippi State. Teams that can block them up front have chances to hit big runs. Caden Durham's, his vision's really kind of turn this LSU offense, or I should say rushing attack around. So I think they have the recipe to run the ball pretty well against this A&M team. I just think they should commit to doing it because you kind of said it. Like, I don't necessarily question LSU's offensive line and pass pro, but any team that's running the ball or not running the ball well enough and letting defensive lines, especially good defensive lines, really tee off on them, I think you're going to see some negative plays, some pressure, some of those things you don't want to see if you're LSU.
Especially a night game at Kyle Field. Like that just inherently makes it hard. Like when that crowd gets going and it's hard to hear the snap count, you saw Notre Dame struggle with this. That's a factor in this football game. How can you take the crowd out of it? Run the football a little bit. Slow down this pass rush. Help your offensive line out. We'll see if they can do. I'm going to be quite frank. Like we've seen like the Alabama-Tennessee game and the Georgia-Texas game in past weeks get a lot of excitement and hype. This game I am extremely fired up for. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later.